My name is Clara. I am 34 years old. I own 4 apartment buildings in this city. I bought the first one 8 years ago with money my grandmother left me. That building was old and tired. It needed everything. I was 26 and I did not know anything about buildings, but I learned. I worked hard. I fixed things myself at first because I could not afford to pay people. I painted walls. I fixed pipes. I cleaned hallways. I knew every corner of that building before I hired anyone to help me. That is how I started. Over the years, the buildings grew. I bought a second one, then a third, then the fourth. Each one was a little easier than the one before because I knew more. I had a good team by then. Property managers, cleaners, maintenance workers. I did not have to do everything myself anymore, but I missed it. I missed the work with my hands. I missed the simple feeling of cleaning something and seeing it become beautiful. My grandmother always said that honest work done well was its own reward. I believe that. I still believe it. So when I bought the 4th building, I made a decision. I decided I would spend 1 day a week cleaning it myself. Not every unit, just the common areas, the lobby, the hallways, the laundry room. I told my team I wanted to stay connected to the work. They thought it was strange. I did not care. The building was on Thornton Street. It had 12 units, mostly young professionals, a few older tenants who had been there for years before I bought it. I started on a Thursday. I wore plain clothes. I had my cart. I started with the lobby and worked my way up. On my 3rd week there, I met Daniel. He lived in Unit 7 on the 2nd floor. He came down to the lobby as I was mopping near the mailboxes. He stopped and said good morning. I said good morning back. He said thank you for keeping this place so clean. I said it was my job. He smiled and went to get his mail. I noticed him, the way you notice someone who is naturally kind. He said thank you to me every time he passed, not the quick, polite thank you that people give without thinking. He stopped. He looked at me. He said it like he meant it. That was something. His name was Daniel Holt. I learned that from the mailbox label, Unit 7. He worked somewhere nearby because he always left at 8 and came back around 6. He carried a messenger bag. He wore simple clothes. He looked like someone who thought about things. By the 2nd month, he started staying to talk a little. Not long, just a few minutes. He would ask how my morning was going. I would say fine. He would say something small about the building or the weather. Then he would go, but it was always genuine, always warm. I did not tell him I owned the building. I am not sure exactly why at first. It felt strange to announce it. I was cleaning. He was a tenant. The moment did not call for it. And then time passed, and it became harder to bring up naturally. By month 3, I knew his coffee order because he had mentioned it once. He always brought 2 coffees on Thursday mornings, one for him, one he left on my cart with a small note. The first note said, "For the hardest worker in the building." I kept that note. I started to think about him on the other days of the week. That surprised me. I had been alone for 3 years since my last relationship ended. I had told myself I was happy that way. I had my work, my buildings, my plans. I did not need more. But Daniel made me wonder. He was the kind of person who made you feel seen without trying. He did not ask intrusive questions. He did not compliment in ways that felt like something else. He was simply present, genuinely curious, quietly warm. I had not met many people like that. One Thursday, he asked if I had eaten. I said I had had something earlier. He said he had made too much soup and would I like some. He looked embarrassed when he asked, like he was worried it was too forward. I said yes before I could think about it more. We ate soup in the hallway outside his door because he said he did not want to make me uncomfortable coming inside. He brought 2 bowls and we sat on the floor against the wall like children. The soup was very good. He had made it from scratch. He apologized that it was not better. I said it was the best soup I had eaten in months. That was how it started. Soup in a hallway. 2 people sitting on the floor, talking about nothing in particular. His work, my family, books we had read, places we had been. It felt easy in a way that most conversations do not feel easy. I cleaned that building every Thursday for 3 years. In the first year, Daniel and I ate together in that hallway maybe once a month. In the second year, it became almost every week. Sometimes he brought the food. Sometimes I did. We talked more and more. I learned that he was an architect. He worked for a small firm that designed residential buildings. I found that quietly funny and said nothing. He learned that I worked in property. I said I managed buildings. That was true. It was also not the whole truth. By the middle of the second year, I knew I had real feelings for him. I also knew the situation had become complicated in a way I had not planned for. He thought I was a cleaner, a building employee, a working woman who showed up with a mop every Thursday. He had never treated me differently for that. He had never talked to me like I was less. He had talked to me like I was Clara, just Clara, a person worth talking to. That mattered to me more than I expected it to matter. But I knew I had let this go on too long without telling him the truth. Every time I tried to find the right moment, something stopped me. I was afraid he would feel deceived, afraid the warmth between us would change, afraid of losing Thursday mornings. In the third year, he asked me to dinner, a real dinner, not soup in a hallway. A restaurant. He was nervous asking. I could see it in the way he held his coffee cup, both hands, eyes on the floor, first then up at me. He said he understood if I said no. I said yes. We went on a Saturday evening to a small Italian restaurant 3 blocks from the building. He wore a jacket. He looked different outside of the building, better somehow, or maybe just more fully himself. We talked for 3 hours, and the food got cold because we kept forgetting to eat. After that, we went to dinner every few weeks. He held my hand walking home one night and did not let go until we reached my door. I had given him the address of my apartment, not the building I lived in, one of my other properties. I was not ready for him to know everything. One evening after dinner, he told me something. He said he had been looking for a place to buy. He said he wanted to stay in the neighborhood, but his lease was coming up and he was thinking about owning. He said he had been doing numbers. He asked if I knew anything about property in the area. I said I knew a little. I told him what I knew, honestly, without revealing everything. He said I seemed to know more than a little. He was smiling when he said it. I said I paid attention. He said that was one of the things he liked about me. 3 weeks later, his neighbor in Unit 8 moved out. I had already known it was coming. His property manager had told me. I held the unit. I told my manager I was not in a rush to fill it. My manager thought I was being careless with income. I said I had my reasons. One Thursday, Daniel mentioned that his neighbor had moved. He said the building had been quiet lately. He said he wondered if new people would be coming soon. I said probably. He said he hoped they would be good neighbors. I said I hoped so too. That same week, I went to visit my grandmother's grave. I do this every few months. I bring flowers and I talk to her like she can hear me. I told her about Daniel. I told her about the soup and the hallway and the dinners and the way he held my hand. I asked her what she would do. She was a practical woman. She would say, "Tell the truth and let it land where it lands." She would say that anything built on incomplete information is fragile. She would say that he deserves to know who you are. I decided to tell him. I chose a Sunday. We were walking in the park near the building. It was late afternoon and the light was soft. I said, "Daniel, I need to tell you something." He stopped walking. He looked at me with that serious, careful attention he always had. I told him everything, that I owned the building, that I had been cleaning it myself since I bought it because I wanted to stay connected to the work, that I had not corrected his assumption about my job because the moment never felt right, and then it just kept going. He was quiet for a long time. I watched his face. I could not read it clearly. He looked at the ground. He looked at the trees. He looked at me. He said, "The building on Thornton Street." I said yes. He said, "You own it." I said yes. He said nothing for almost a minute. Then he said, "The soup." I said, "What?" He said, "All those times you brought food. You brought food to someone who lives in your building." I said yes. He was quiet again. Then he laughed, a real laugh, surprised and wide. He shook his head. He said, "I thought you were the hardest working person I had ever seen." I said, "I am." He said, "You own 4 buildings and you still mop the floors yourself." I said, "My grandmother taught me to stay close to the work." He looked at me for a long time. He said, "That is the most Clara thing I have ever heard." He was not angry. He said he understood why I had not told him. He said he would probably have done the same thing. He said that was not entirely true, but that he understood the impulse. He held my hand again. He did not let go. 6 months later, he proposed in that same hallway where we had first eaten soup. He brought bowls from the same recipe. He sat down on the floor like before. He asked me to sit. Then he took out a ring that had belonged to his mother. He said, "I love Clara, the person, not the buildings, not what you own, just you. The woman who mops hallways, she owns and brings food to tenants and keeps notes that people leave her. I know because I saw the note on your refrigerator the first time I came to your apartment. You kept it." I said yes. Of course I said yes. We ate soup on the floor of the hallway, the same way we had started. The building was quiet around us. My building, our hallway, the beginning of everything. My grandmother was right. Honest work done well is its own reward. But sometimes it is also where you find the person you were always supposed to find. I did not know that when I bought that building. I know it now. I know it every single day. I have thought a lot about why I started cleaning that building myself. People around me thought it was eccentric. My accountant once said, "You know you could hire 3 people for what your time is worth." I said, "Yes, I know." He did not understand. My grandmother used to say that the trouble with success is that it can separate you from the things that made you who you are. She said money is useful, but money cannot teach you what work teaches you. I listened to her. I still listen to her. She came to this country with very little. She built things slowly. She never forgot what it felt like to start from nothing. She said forgetting, that was the most dangerous thing that could happen to a person. I thought about that often while I pushed the cleaning cart. The lobby of the Thornton Street building always smelled of old wood and something floral. There was a plant near the front door that had been there when I bought the building. I watered it every Thursday. It was still alive 3 years later. That seemed like a good sign. There were other tenants who spoke to me sometimes. Mrs. Aldworth on the 4th floor always left a biscuit on her doorstep on Thursday mornings. She said she baked too many and they would go to waste. I ate them every week. She never knew she was feeding the landlord. Mr. Park on the ground floor had a cat that sometimes sat in the hallway. He always apologized for it. I told him I did not mind. I did not. The cat was a gray and orange thing with serious eyes. It never let me pet it. I found that appropriate. The building had its own rhythm. I learned it the way you learn anything you return to regularly. The sounds of it, the temperature of the morning light at different times of year, which door stuck in wet weather, which hallway light needed attention first. I thought about Daniel often when I was not at the building, more often than made sense for the amount of time we actually spent together. 40 minutes on a Thursday is not a great deal of time, but some people occupy more space in your thinking than the hours justify. He had a way of asking questions that showed he had actually listened to the previous answer. That is rarer than it should be. Most people listen enough to know when to speak next. He listened all the way through. He thought before responding. I valued that. Once he told me that he had noticed I never used the service elevator. He said most of the maintenance staff used it. I said I liked seeing the building from the front. He said that was an interesting perspective for someone in my position. I said everyone has interesting perspectives if you ask. He thought about that for a moment. Then he said, I think a lot of architects forget that. They design from plans and models, and they stop seeing from inside the experience. He said he tried to walk every building he worked on from the point of view of the person who would actually live in it. I said, do you walk the Thornton Street building like that? He said, all the time. He said he had actually noticed things about it that he thought could be improved. He said he hoped that was not strange to say. I said, not at all. Tell me. He told me. He said the lighting in the back stairwell was too harsh. He said the mailbox area felt cramped and could be opened up without much structural work. He said the lobby plant was in the wrong corner and would do better with more morning light. I moved the plant the following Thursday. He came down that morning and stopped when he saw it. He said, you moved the plant. I said, you were right about the light. He stood there for a moment. He said, I did not expect you to actually do that. I said, why not? He said, I am just a tenant. I said, you know about buildings. He looked at me with something new in his expression, like he was recalculating something. He said, you take your work very seriously. I said, it is worth taking seriously. He agreed. That conversation was in the 2nd year. I thought about it many times afterward. The moment where he looked at me differently, not because he knew what I actually was, but because he saw what kind of person I was, which turned out to matter more. The dinner where I told him about the building was not the end of anything. It was a beginning. He processed the information over the following days. He called me 2 days later. He said he had been thinking. He said he wanted to ask me something. He asked if I had ever regretted buying the building. I said, which one? There was a silence. Then he laughed. He said, how many are there? I told him. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, and you still clean them yourself? I said, only the one on Thornton. He said, "Why only that one?" I said, "Because that is where I found something I was not looking for." He said, "What did you find?" I said, "I found someone who leaves coffee on a cleaning cart and means it." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I am going to come over. Is that all right?" I said yes. He came over that evening. We sat on my floor because the sofa was in the wrong room from when I had rearranged the furniture. We sat with our backs against the wall and talked until after midnight. He told me things about himself. He said he had not told many people. I told him things too. He told me about his parents. His father had been an engineer. His mother had been a teacher. They had both been people who built things. He said he thought that was why he had become an architect. He said building things made him feel connected to them, even though they were both gone now. I told him about my grandmother, about the money and the buildings and the Thursday mornings. He listened to all of it without interruption. When I finished, he said, "She sounds extraordinary." I said she was. He said, "She would probably like that you still mop your own floors." I said, "She would have loved it." He proposed 3 months later than I said. The hallway, the soup, the ring from his mother. He had told me about the ring once before. He mentioned it in passing. He said it was the only thing of his mother's that he had kept. I had not understood then why he was telling me. I understood when he opened the box. I said yes, and then I cried, which surprised me. I am not generally a person who cries easily, but something about the accumulation of it all. The years of Thursday mornings, the coffee on the cart, the soup on the floor, the plant in the right corner now, all of it arrived at once, and the only response my body had was tears. He held me in that hallway for a long time. The building was quiet around us. It was a Thursday, my building, his home, our hallway, the beginning of something that had actually already been going on for 3 years, without either of us naming it properly. We were married the following spring. Small ceremony, the same 80 people. He wore the same expression he had worn at our first dinner when he kept forgetting to eat because the conversation was too interesting. I wore something simple and felt completely like myself. My property manager attended the wedding. He shook Daniel's hand and said, "Do you know your wife mops the hallways herself?" Daniel said, "I know. I fell in love with her while she was mopping." My manager shook his head. He said he would never understand either of us. We took that as a compliment. We live in a house now, not the Thornton Street building, though Daniel did move out of Unit 7 before we married. He gave proper notice. He left the unit cleaner than he found it. I checked. He scored very high. I did not tell him I checked. I still clean the Thornton Street building on Thursdays. Not every week, maybe once a month now. It is different without Daniel in Unit 7. But Mrs. Aldworth still leaves a biscuit. Mr. Park's cat still sits in the hallway and ignores me. The plant is in the right corner. Some Thursdays, Daniel comes with me. He says he wants to see what the mailbox area looks like with better lighting. He has been saying he wants to improve it for a year. I think he just wants to come. I think he loves that building for the same reason I do, because it is where we found each other, accidentally, gradually, in the way that the best things find you, not with a dramatic announcement, but with coffee left on a cart and soup eaten on a floor and a plant moved to a better corner, because someone who cared about buildings told the truth about where the light was. There is a version of this story where I never bought that building, where I hired people for everything from the start and sat in an office and managed spreadsheets and never pushed a cleaning cart anywhere. That version exists. I am glad it is not mine. I think about all the things I would not have if I had done it that way. I would not have known the sound the lobby makes at 7 in the morning when the light first comes through the front window. I would not have known about Mrs. Aldworth and her biscuits. I would not have known Daniel. That above everything else. I would have gone on building a very successful life without the one person who turned out to be the most important thing in it. That is a thought I only allow myself briefly. The near miss of it is too large to look at directly. Daniel says he does not think about the near miss. He says he believes some things find their way to each other, regardless of circumstance. I say that is a lovely idea, and I am not sure I believe it. He says, you believe in working hard and staying connected to the work. Maybe that is the same thing. Maybe it is. Maybe the way things find each other is through the ordinary accumulation of choices. I chose to buy that building. I chose to clean it myself. I chose to say yes to soup in a hallway. Each choice was small. The total was not small at all. The building on Thornton Street is still there. It is better than it was when I bought it. The lighting in the back stairwell is exactly right now. The mailbox area was opened up 2 years ago by an architect who knows a thing or two about how space works. The plant is in the right corner. There are new tenants in Unit 7. A young woman who is a graphic designer. She says thank you to the cleaning staff every time she passes. She does not know yet that the woman who owns the building sometimes comes on Thursdays and mops the lobby herself. She will probably find out eventually. Someone always does. I have stopped worrying about it. The truth of who I am does not require explaining. I am a woman who owns buildings and mops her own floors. Those two things are not in contradiction. They are the same thing. My grandmother understood that. She was a woman who could have hired anyone to do anything and still chose to do most things herself because she believed that how you did things was as important as what you did. I believe that too. I learned it from her. I will teach it to our children. Daniel and I are expecting. I found out on a Thursday morning. I had been to the building that morning. I had finished early and come home and taken the test in the bathroom with my jacket still on. I sat on the edge of the bathtub for a long time afterward. He was at work. I called him. He answered immediately. I said, I need to tell you something. He said, I am listening. I told him. There was a silence that lasted long enough that I said, are you there? He said, I am here. I am just trying to feel all of this at once. He came home early. He brought flowers, which he never does. He stood in the doorway holding them with both hands, looking like someone who does not quite believe the room he is standing in. I laughed. He laughed. He put the flowers down and held me for a long time. We talked about the building that evening. He said, do you think you will still clean it when the baby is here? I said, probably not every week. He said, but sometimes. I said, definitely sometimes. He smiled. He said, I will come with you. He said, I want our child to know that building. I think about what I will tell our child about how we met. I think I will tell them the true version, all of it. The cleaning cart and the coffee and the soup on the floor and the plant in the right corner. I think they will find it funny, and then they will understand. They will understand that some of the most important things in your life arrive in the middle of ordinary work, that the person you were always going to love might be standing in a lobby when you come in from the street, that all you have to do is say good morning and mean it. That is the whole story. Or at least, that is where it is now. It will keep going. Every Thursday, there will be more of it. Every morning, Daniel makes coffee, and I drink it, and we sit in our kitchen, and that is more of it. The building on Thornton is more of it. The plant in the right corner, more of it. My grandmother would have loved all of this. The building and the work and the man who left coffee on the cart. She would have said, "You see, you stayed close to the work, and look what the work gave you." She would have been right. She was almost always right. That is one of the things I miss most about her. But she is also not gone, not entirely. She is in the way I run my buildings, in the way I get down to the work when the work needs doing. In the Thursday mornings and the cleaning cart and the belief that honest labor done with real attention is never wasted. She is in me. And now I am in something that is going forward, a family, a life built from choices I made and work I did, and a Thursday morning when a man with a messenger bag said good morning and meant it. That is everything. That is more than enough. Daniel designed a small extension to the Thornton Street building last year, just the entrance. He added a proper canopy and better lighting at the front steps. He said he had been thinking about it since the second year. I said, "You are designing improvements to a building you did not know you would one day own part of." He said, "Yes." He said, "Is that strange?" I said, "It is the most you thing I have ever heard." The canopy is very good. It is the kind of design that looks simple but is not simple. It keeps the rain off without looking like it is trying too hard. It suits the building completely. Mrs. Aldworth said it made the whole street look more welcoming. I told Daniel. He was pleased in the quiet way that skilled people are pleased when their work is noticed by the right person. Some things are worth saying even when they are difficult to say. The truth about who I was turned out to be one of those things. It could have ended things. It did not. It began them properly. I think that is the shape of most true things. Difficult to say, worth saying, better on the other side. I am grateful for every Thursday morning that led to this one. Every cart and every biscuit and every mop handle and every cup of coffee left with a note. The accumulated ordinary weight of showing up. That is what built this. Nothing more dramatic than that. Nothing that needed to be. I think about the Thursday mornings the most. The particular silence of a building before most people are awake. The sound of the mop on the floor. The smell of the cleaning products and the old wood. The plant in the right corner. The first light through the front window. Those mornings made me who I am and brought me everything I have. I would do them all again without changing a single one. The baby is coming in spring. Daniel has already started designing the nursery. Not decorating, designing. He has sketches. He has talked about light and proportions and the direction the window faces. I watch him working on the sketches at the kitchen table, and I think, this is the man I found in my own building. This is what Thursday mornings led to, a kitchen table, a man drawing a nursery for our child, a life I could not have imagined when I pushed my first cleaning cart through that lobby 8 years ago. And yet it makes perfect sense, because the life I have now is built from the same things those Thursday mornings were built from. Showing up, paying attention, staying close to what matters, telling the truth when it is time to tell it. Those are not complicated principles. They are just the ones that work. They worked for my grandmother. They worked for me. They will work for the person who is coming in spring. I will tell them the whole story one day. The buildings and the cart and the coffee left with a note. The soup on the hallway floor. The plant in the right corner. The man who designed improvements to a building he did not know he would one day help fill with a family. I will tell them, this is how your parents found each other. In the ordinary work, in the showing up, in the saying good morning and meaning it. That is the whole story. That is the best story I know.